Thanks for coming. My name is Durham. One of the co-founders of Festival and Don't Panic Labs up on the third floor. Normally these are highly technical talks, but we do tend to intersperse a few maybe distinctly non-technical talks, and this would be one of them. My goal with this talk is to maybe get you thinking a little bit differently from how you might be traditionally thinking about the role of leadership within software development. And this is particularly true, becoming, in my opinion, in our opinion, becoming more critical. And I'll get into that in a little bit of detail here. So I think this talk, this isn't going to last very long, so I think it'll probably be maybe 25 to 30 minutes. So if you guys have questions afterwards, otherwise we just kind of chit-chat and network. So there's a lot of challenges we're facing today in the types of things we're trying to do with software that are putting more pressure on our software development teams, our abilities, such that I think the status quo for maybe the way we might have been operating 20 years ago is not going to cut it. And I'm not just talking about, learning the latest and greatest framework or the latest and greatest language. I'm talking about some of the, I will call it non-technology specific aspects of how we develop software. And so this has been a big focus of ours over the last 8 years because we were, essentially we were frustrated with the way we were developing software prior to that point. Things just weren't working out. And so we identified some key attributes of systems that can be successful, and we've tried to change the way we design software, which I think we've talked about that before. But I think we also look at this from more of a kind of an integrated, holistic view. That if somebody came to us and said, well, what's that one key thing you're doing that you think makes it successful or gives you the most success? I'd have a hard time coming up with that. Because I think if you take any one thing out of our what we call our development culture, I think things start to crumble. And so I think in one of those things that we have invested in over the last 8 years is this role of leadership within our development teams and within our development culture. And it's become incredibly critical. One of the main reasons for this, and this is also related to why we changed the way we decompose and design software, is the importance of maintaining conceptual integrity within the system. Making sure that the system itself looks like it was designed by one person. And we talk about conceptual integrity a lot around here with DPL, and we put practices and policies and leadership in place to maintain that. Because we've also learned that software design, software architecture isn't something you do once and then move on, put it on the shelf and everybody's just good to go. It's something that you have to nurture continuously. As things change, as you become on a project, as you have a variety of different skill sets and experience that's there. So, not a new concept. Fred Brooks talked about this. He famously wrote Mythical Man Month, but also wrote a series of essays that he's published under a book called The Designer's Design, which is a pretty good book, a pretty good reference book. He'd argued that he'd rather have a system that was maybe feature deficient but had conceptual integrity as opposed to a system that was feature complete but looked like it was defined by a dozen people. And what he recognizes there is that maintaining that is what enables teams to continue to have the velocity for future changes. Mark Fowler also talked about this in this chart that I'm obligated to show in every single presentation I give. It's my favorite chart because I think everybody here has been on the blue line. You want to get off the blue line and get off the red line. And software development leadership has a lot to do with staying on the red line. And then you also have an environment. So before we came here, I should say, before we started the Recipe, we had never really hired anybody right out of college. And this is not a knock on young people, but I realized in reflecting on like the previous companies we were at, it was a fairly homogeneous group of people with a similar level of experience. But when we came to Nebraska Global, we knew we wanted to invest in the development of young people and young entrepreneurs in our community, which come with a lot of energy and really incredible ideas, but don't have the same level of experience that we have. And so that's another thing I've come to realize is there are benefits to getting older and making a lot of mistakes, because I think it gives you perspective on things. So any team that we have now, way more diverse in terms of, thankfully, in terms of gender, but also in terms of level of experience and capability. And I think that reflects a lot of the teams that are out there. So you have people who are on a different point of this path of their own personal maturity level. You know, people start, you're just expected to kind of just absorb what we're talking about. And then eventually, I want you to be able to effectively adopt these practices and patterns. And eventually, some people get to the point where they're actively advocating. So they're out there and they're applying these patterns, not just to new situations, but they're coaching and teaching and justifying and promoting these patterns. So, you know, technical leadership has a lot to do with just helping people move along that journey. So, the bottom line with a lot of the software systems we're building today and their level of complexity is that software design always happens. It's always happening. I would say in many situations people are not happy with the software design that's happening, not aware that the software design is happening, may not even be thinking the software design is happening, but anytime we're filling in gaps as we're writing code for things that were not specified or not defined, or we don't have good design criteria or good objectives for what we're trying to do, you're still making design decisions, whether you realize it or not. And software entropy, which is this notion that, you know, version 1 of the system we built, really, we understood it, it looked really cool, it worked, it was easy to reason as we're going through the code, but version 2, 3, 4 down the road, we don't actively control it, and software entropy will occur. That whole notion of software rot. Just software left to its own devices, if you will decay over time. And so, ultimately, what's driving a lot of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to maintain business agility. I think I've talked about that before. That's our ultimate responsibility as software developers. I think no matter where you're at, your responsibility is to make sure that the business can react to new information, effectively react to that. Because we're not in the business of making software that we package, burn to a CD, put on a shelf, and never touching it. This whole notion, there was a time where version numbers of software really mattered. That's really what you talked about. Today, you don't hear anybody talking about what version of that software you're working with, because it's just things are continually updating. You're really just more concerned with, do I have the latest and greatest? So some of this, some of the things we're talking about around software leadership have to do with, do we want to just kind of let things happen, or do we want to be in control of the way things are happening? And I think that's too much pressure to put on individual developers, and that's where I think leadership comes into play. So maybe when I first put this talk together, and we use this talk as part of our software design clinic, I thought it might be beneficial to have some parables. And we were just in the midst of coaching change here at the University of Nebraska, and got me thinking about why is it that the previous coaching change failed? And so I'm going to talk about a couple of parables that might emphasize the leadership in some other domains. So one, imagine your football team. You're responsible for a football team, and you take the best players in the state. I mean, these are the kids that are the best at their position. Right? You're not just randomly picking players. You're taking the best defensive ends, the best defensive tackles, the best quarterback, the best running back, and you're assembling that team, right, on a Friday, and you're telling them you're playing Nebraska or whoever on Saturday. Imagine how that would go. I picked the best, and they all know how to play their position. They all know how to. They've had good instruction, good coaching. But imagine what that would look like. It might occasionally look like football, but I would guarantee you they're going to lose to any team that is coached by an individual who had a game plan, who provided some structure for how these players were to play and interact with one another. Because football is a team sport, right? It's not just a bunch of individuals. So a football team would be a disaster without a head coach, right? Let's take a house as another example. And this is a different take on the whole house analogy for software. Let's say I pick the best craftsman in Lincoln, and the best plumber, the best framer, the best concrete guy, the best, cabinet maker, all of it. I've got the best people. And I describe to them what I want to build. I want to build a ranch house, 3,000 square feet, I want a fun kitchen, the bedroom needs to be so big. And I say, okay, have at it. These people have all successfully built houses in the past, but I really haven't given them enough to go on. I've given them my desire and my features, but there's a lot of missing information there. There's a lot of kind of real-time decisions that probably need to be made per house, even if you have a house plan. There's a lot of questions about the order of things happening, and if you don't control that, then you've got drywallers in there drywalling the bathroom. The electricians come in later and says, "Well, I got to put, I got to run electricity in here yet." Plumbers tearing out walls. I mean, it's chaos, right? So, how are these stories any different than the type of software we're building? If we put teams together and we give them a backlog and we say, okay, just start pulling things off the backlog and build that feature. And we have it now, even if we've invested in some level of design, I still think it's a lot of pressure to put on individuals within that team to be successful with that. And I'm not talking about if I'm building a simple web application that might be tracking a to-do list. I'm talking about the types of systems we're building today, where we're distributing these systems, we're hosting them in the cloud. We've got the ability and the need to scale to meet customer demands or troubleshoot systems, or we have security requirements and things like that to make sure that our data is protected and all that other stuff. Who's worrying about that? Who's making sure that we're doing our level best of testing, making sure that we have all those processes in place? Are we just sharing that responsibility amongst everybody? I think in a lot of cases that is what's happening. So when my first job out of college, I was working at a place that probably is the most complicated thing I've ever worked on, even though I wasn't responsible for the whole thing. I was working as what they call an avionics systems integration engineer at McDonald's. I'm working on the F-18 program, and it's a complicated fighter jet, all digital, fly-by-wire. It's crazy complicated, all kinds of different sensors and things like that. My responsibility on that, as an engineer there, I wasn't writing the software, I wasn't building the hardware, I wasn't actually physically producing anything other than maybe some requirements analysis and things like that. But I was responsible for making sure that everything came together. I was responsible for making sure that the software guys knew what they needed to do and how to do it. And when they had questions about how something needed to work, I was aware enough about implications of those changes to other dependencies to be able to give them guidance. And so I was in the middle of all this stuff. And I followed a particular project along from the day we got the requirements to the customer, and I communicated back to them what we were going to be working on and how we were going to solve that problem, to scheduling and marshaling all the different people who might be involved in getting it done, doing all the testing in the lab, going out to flight testing and designing the tests that were going to happen in the field, working with the people that were going to be creating the training manuals for the pilots, everything involved with rolling this particular capability out to end users. And that was. So when I came out of that, I was like, that's what a system engineer does. That person who's managing all that complexity. And so I would like to see systems engineering become more of a defining role within our software development team now, because we're not just building these two-tier applications that are hosted on a server in our data set. We're building systems that have multiple clients, systems with a lot of third parties now that create dependencies and risk for our systems and require us to be more risk tolerant and plan for that. And we're monitoring these systems to make sure that they're still working and that we have that when problems do occur, we have the data to be able to correct those problems. And you notice I pulled this off of Wikipedia, and I highlighted a few things that are important. Managing complex systems over their life cycles. That's essentially what I was doing at Mount Douglas on the F-18. That was my responsibility. And what we've tried to do at Lone Pine Labs is emulate that. And this is where I want to get people thinking a little bit differently and trying to understand what does it mean to be a systems engineer? Do we need that in our projects? I don't think we're thinking about it that way. In other words, the system engineer, in other words, we're talking about a head coach, or an architect, or a CEO. Somebody who's responsible and accountable for the entire enterprise and ensuring that. Because I think we've talked about this quite a bit. If you have shared accountability for some of this stuff, it really means you don't really have accountability. Right? If somebody is not, sort of the buck stops here sort of thing. If somebody is not ultimately saying, this is my responsibility, this is what I got to do, then it can be problematic for that team to actually have that accountability. So traditionally, we've had this role of senior developer, and I just kind of made up it. I think you all know what we're talking about. We're talking about that person who really clearly went beyond just like an entry-level developer, a junior developer. They're now senior. Everybody kind of relies on their technical expertise. They often are coaching junior programmers and might even help some of the more junior programmers with some design and things like that. In my experience, a lot of times these are the people that were leading development teams. And they often were put in that position because they had the strongest technical skills. But with what we're dealing with now, and the types of systems we're dealing with, it does require strong technical skills, but not necessarily just programming skills. Software. We need people who have more systems engineering type skills. People who can come up a level from the details of some of the implementations of how certain modules work, and think more holistically about how the system works together. Those are the type of people we need. So we've spent some time to try to define that role. This is a role that is, I'd love to tell you that day one of Nebraska Global, we defined this role, put people in this position, and we were off and running. But this role is a role that kind of emerged in our experience probably over the first 2 or 3 years. And I would say it continues to kind of evolve a little bit. But there are some consistent things that I think, and responsibilities that we feel are part of this role. So one, obviously, we want people who are good senior developers, right? The technical aptitude, do they have to be the best? The sharpest, the best, the guy who understands that, the C# and the CLR and .NET Framework and everything else? No. But they certainly need to be competent at a senior level. Then we expect these people to be coaches and mentors on design principles and standards. Remember I was talking about this advocacy thing. These people need to be advocates because what we're trying to do, we're trying to get those younger people from just absorption through adoption and potentially to advocacy. And that takes teaching and using examples and constantly looking at that with young people. This conceptual integrity of the design, I think it's definitely something that cannot be shared. In our environment, we have we use a pull request model, and we have a policy that we have an identified lead engineer on all these projects, and that lead engineer is the one who merges everything into master. Nobody else merges in master. It goes through that lead engineer, and the main he may not be the only person who does a code review of that pull request, but he's the person ultimately that is merging into master. And then the number one responsibility that person has is to make sure that we're not making design decisions in that pull request that violate the design criteria and the intended design of that system. And I know of no other way at this point to be able to do that other than having that one person There's that lead engineer who owns that responsibility and has that experience. Maintaining the big picture of a product. So we like to think that our systems are very loosely coupled, and I can make changes over here that won't impact this area over here, or that we can trust third-party APIs to behave the way they say they're going to behave. But that's not reality. Sometimes we are making design decisions on one side of a product that have implications elsewhere. And so having this, we'll call it the kind of the chief engineer that understands enough about what's going on in the entire system that they can see those things, more often than not. They can see that we might be going down a path here that at least other people need to know about that. As we get into situations where we want to be doing releases out of sync with the kind of the entire system, where we're updating certain parts of the system separate from another part of the system, that puts a ton of pressure. Because everything's fine if interfaces aren't changing, but interfaces tend not to be that static. They do change over time. So some level of coordination needs to happen there. Being a proactive communicator. What do I mean by that? Making sure, even if you are not sure that people need to know about something, a decision or some behavior, getting out in front of that and pushing information out. Folks I work with know that I hate the pull method for information. I want to be pushed information. Because there's any number of sources of information I could be looking at, but I would spend all day just going through to say, is there anything here I need to be concerned about? And so it's much better when people are pushing and saying, hey Doug, I just want to let you know this was happening over here. I made it, not sure if you care or not. That is such a much better model for a team. And so within the number one thing that draws down effectiveness of teams is the communication. So I'm sure you've heard before that the most efficient team is a team of one. But then when you go to a team of two, they don't have twice the throughput of a one-person team because there's some friction loss, there's some heat loss, if you will, in the communication. And as the teams grow and grow and grow, that communication, pressure on communication becomes even greater. Responsible for performance of the product. Now this might be one that you might think, well, the individual engineer should be responsible for that. I would say, yeah, there is an obligation, and individual engineers need to be aware of that. But again, if you're sharing that responsibility with everybody, then you're probably going to have problems. And I'm not saying this lead engineer needs to do all the performance testing, but somebody with that big picture needs to be thinking, I want to make sure we're doing this level of testing for this area of the problem. I want to make sure that I'm pushing the QA people to pay attention here. The value of having that big picture, understanding how all the pieces play together, even at an abstract level, gives that person insight into where problems might exist that individual engineers just might not have. Ensures engineers are testing their code. This goes along kind of hand in hand with the notion that software design needs to be maintained and nurtured. I think that, and you have the fact that you have a wide variety of skills, capabilities of your team, somebody who's responsible to make sure we're doing the level of quality of testing that's happening at the individual engineer level is consistent, is important. And I think engineers actually would appreciate that. That's a great teaching opportunity for somebody to come in there and say, I see what you're doing here, I think you ought to be testing this a little bit differently. Or I think these tests are not nearly as important as these tests over here. Performs code reviews. I already mentioned this, that that person is doing is the main person who's merging into master and then doing that data code reviews. And then finally, because everybody's on a growth path and nobody has arrived, if you will, these people should be going out and trying to find mentors and trying to learn and trying to grow themselves. Nobody has the tiger by the tail and has all the answers. There's no way. So we often talk about some of the best leaders are people who have a little bit of imposter syndrome, or we've talked about being kind of confidently humble. I think a little bit of a uncertainty about your own abilities or where you might have blind spots is an asset. It causes you to go out and seek out other people who might have insights that you don't share. And then you kind of fold that in. It's like a board. You're trying to assimilate a lot of information to give yourself the best advantage you can. So this is, on the right here, this is kind of our ideal that we're looking for these people to be lead engineers. These are the roles and responsibilities that we're putting on the people. And I think you can see there's a lot of stuff on here that doesn't have to do with how well that person writes code. A lot of it has to do with how well that person can maintain a big picture of the product and understand how all the pieces work together and how to work with individuals and where to having kind of a sense for where problems might occur and being able to coach people along the way. So some of you may be asking, all right, well, lead chief engineer, there's only a few people that are going to get to that. I may be a different part of my journey. Are there things I could be doing now to be thinking about developing my own capabilities as a leader? And being a leader doesn't mean you're necessarily in charge of people. Being a leader is somebody, I think, that you can be a leader even if you're not in charge of people. I think there's a lot of ways, in particular in our environment, where these development teams tend to have a lot of people who are self-actualized, and we have a lot of autonomy, and we tend to try to, effective people are trying to influence and make sure everybody else is growing and learning from their own experience and mistakes. So I think there's opportunities at all levels of experience to be a leader. And so I wanted to include something in here about that. And I recall that just recently I came across an article I thought was just awesome. I thought this person, I don't know her, this came across on YouTube, I think is how I found this. Did anybody see this article? Yeah. So, the title of this article, the one essential skill that will set you apart from other developers. So this is geared towards, us rank and file developers, folks in this team. And that one essential skill is thinking like a CEO. And I thought this was brilliant. And I think this will maybe make sense for you as I go through her 5 points here. So thinking like a CEO. So one, the CEO wants to understand what are the business drivers for his business. What are the things that matter? And as a software developer, I don't want to just, what matters is not just how pretty my code is. It matters how valuable what I'm working on, and its role in advancing the business and having that connectivity to the value that I'm providing to that business and the agility it's providing to that business. Number two, leverages data effectively. The CEO is definitely looking at data. They're very data-driven. Maybe some of them are too data-driven and not using their instincts. But how does this relate to us? Well, we use our intuition on things as well sometimes. Or we think this ought to work. I made this fix. This ought to work. This ought to solve our performance problem. Did we actually test it? Do we actually have data that shows the way it was working before was X and now it's Y? We deal with a lot of data. Our systems that we build deal with a lot of data, but I'm not sure we're always leveraging that data. And we might feel, it takes some effort to do that. It's valuable time spent. And the more you're able to make decisions based upon quantified before and after results, the more confident you're going to be in what you're doing. Learn to delegate. So one of the best piece of advice I ever got was when I was in officer school. It was one of the first things they told us. They're just trying to level set us. They said, your job as an officer is to train the person to replace you. That's your number one job. And I thought, okay, that's really bizarre. I would not have thought of it that way. I thought my job was to lead and make decisions. No, it's to train the person to replace you. And in this case, what they're trying to do is to make sure that everybody's confident in their decision making. And should you be able to picture there's someone there to be able to make that decision. But in terms of mobility, this is important as well. I'm sure you've probably been in a situation where you had somebody that really kind of owned some part of a system. They might even felt like their job security was relying on them being owning that part of the system. But really, what they've done is they have ensured that they're not moving away from that part of the system. So opportunities that might come down the pipe that they might be suited for, the business is not going to put them in there, right? Because the business is saying, well, Jeff is the only one who understands how this system works and what it's working on it. We can't afford to move him off of that. So I don't know if that might come in your mind, but that's an example where the ability to delegate and trust people to do things can really not just improve the interaction with the team and how well people work together, it can create more opportunities for you. Be obsessed with continuous improvement. And this isn't just learning the latest framework. A CEO is always looking out for an edge. What can I learn? What technique? What new piece of data? What process? What personnel changes can I make that will improve the way the business is working? That's the sort of thing you need to think about in developing yourself. Just don't feel like you got to learn the latest JavaScript framework. We talked before, JavaScript's going away, so we don't have to worry about that. But think about some of these other things I've talked about. Some of these, what does it mean to be a systems engineer? What are some of the things and skills and insights I should try to develop that are not just about how do I write C# or how do I write JavaScript or whatever language it is. Read books that are not about programming. Just always looking for an edge. I think history books are an amazing source of information. Some of the most influential books I've ever read were history books. I read Team of Rivals, the story of Abraham Lincoln. His talent was unbelievable. Almost hard to believe what that guy was doing. But just always be looking to improve yourself and to grow yourself and give yourself more perspective and more insight. And I just tell you, that's well beyond just learning the latest tool or technique. Think beyond that. And then finally, bring positive energy. In a lot of companies, the CEO is a cheerleader. You might be up there standing and looking like everything's great behind the scenes. He's sweating whether they're going to make payroll next week, right? But you cannot, that person cannot afford to share all of his inner thoughts and worries. The team is depending on him to be that cheerleader and to give them confidence to go in the right direction. And in any team where you have people that are more on the opposite end of the spectrum, it has a significant impact on team performance and just the overall morale of the teams. So, be positive. All right. 30 minutes exactly. That's all I have. Any questions, comments, things people want to share? Objections? Yeah.
So when you say that sort of atmosphere, the impact adopted by everybody, it's great. General culture.
I'm sorry, what is it? This one right here?
Yeah.
I think this is good advice for anybody working within a business. And I think it's just, some of these things are not things that a software developer might be thinking could really improve their ability to kind of lead and be effective within their teams. And there are other ways that some of these things may articulate. I just thought this was interesting because she connected a role in a company to another role that I don't think many people would connect. And I thought that was really interesting how she did that. So this whole thinking like a CEO. Not that you're going to be a CEO, but you already have some of the skills and capabilities and some of the things, some of the desirable behaviors and activities you do as a software developer are consistent with what a CEO does. Yeah.
What language do you use to talk about balance between good quality behaviors and processes that you do and meeting deadlines and being fast? I feel like I have people on my team that are those good engineers that deal with quality software development practices, but my biggest criticism of them is sometimes we don't keep our eye on this market fast.
I use English. waiting, I'm just waiting for this one. So I want to make sure I understand, are you saying that they're not always aligned with the business? They have an agenda that doesn't necessarily align with the
No,
business?
there's good quality engineers, but we put a lot of quality process in place. Good things like making sure we have the code reviews and
Mhm.
sign-offs, but at times I wonder if it doesn't make us slow.
Mhm.
And at times my biggest criticism is sometimes the things we put in place to become good developers often sometimes are counter to, yeah, I did something else wrong.
Right. Well, I don't think there is any, here's the key. You're going to pay the price one way or another. So I'll go back to this. This is why this is my favorite diagram. Oh my gosh, too much animation. Right. So to kind of recap this, what Martin Fowler was saying, and I agree with this, is that if you take a team that doesn't do any design, so they're slaying code at this point right here, and you have another team that maybe spends some time doing design, but this team that is not following those processes, not following those patterns, is probably going to outperform this other team for some period of time. But they're paying for it on the back end. And this team will eventually outperform this team. So that's what I mean. And I think that the cost of resolving issues over here versus over here is way higher. There's a lot of data to support that, especially as it comes to software design and architecture. You pay a heavy price for poor architectural decisions down the road in systems. So I realize this is that it's, you know, you can show a chart to this that person who's wondering why we're not moving faster than we are, and they may say, I still need it out in a week. But I think the important thing is to take away from that is we're doing this stuff to maintain our agility over the long haul, as opposed to just trying to get this thing out next week.
We do talk about internal focus versus external focus. Somebody's always thinking about that, so we make decisions on how to process and stuff, or release. There's decisions that all the way. A lot of times we caught ourselves doing selfish decisions that are good for us, and not necessarily good for the client. We try to follow those out and make sure we're making decisions. So we have the concept of
We have probably tried and terminated more processes than we have tried to. Because, yeah, we feel enormous pressure to be efficient and deliver on time, and things that don't generate the results we think they should generate, we're not shy about throwing them off. If it doesn't provide value, we don't want to do it. I think part of working in a small company, you have limited resources, you often have limited runway. It makes you very lean and very focused on those things that can add value and add the most value. I don't know if I answered your question.
Shows another version of that graph, which shows a little more time, a little more on the right side of the graph, so maybe when
So when that curve starts going down even?
Yeah.
We start losing motion?
it might be a little more poignant to understand that the right hand side of that graph is like an infinitely large gap between the two teams. Because it looks sort of equal right now, even though it's clearly not.
But that's when you get to reset the graph and start at the low level corner to the rear.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Kind of related to that, can you talk about when you're trying new things, how do you set your team up so that you don't wind up with spectacular failure at that point? You've got a limit.
Right. Well, we don't try to change too many things at once, is the key. I was working with a company here in Lincoln over a 5-year period that was really struggling. They didn't really have much leadership. I recognized right away, there's 30 people involved in this project development organization. I wasn't going to come in and say, okay, starting day one, we're not doing anything about designing anything, and we're going to write unit tests, and we're all, that's not the path to go. There is a path that is incremental, right? You get people adopting things and and buying into it, and seeing the results of those changes, and giving them confidence that the next thing we're going to do is going to do as well. And maybe sometimes you make a change like, look, back that up, let's do something a little bit different. That didn't work. So you definitely don't want to go in and say, we're going to turn the world on its ear on Monday, come prepared for a completely different experience. I don't think that's very realistic.
Are you setting out to define goals of whatever that change is and measuring progress?
Yeah, I think it's really important to set, this is where we're headed. This is what it's going to look like when we arrive. This is what your expectation should be.
There's
And
a
we,
problem with Microsoft.
but yeah,
There's
there,
a problem with Microsoft.
right. And we, Chad Michael and I wrote a series, did a talk on accountability, and I think we actually talked about that in that class. This whole notion of developers enjoying what they're doing more than not, right? And in a lot of situations, there's a lot of pain involved in development. And so we paint a picture of this is what it can look like. Because here's some companies where it does look like that. And they didn't start that way, they moved in that direction. So how, just like if I have a system that has a ton of technical debt and we want to move it to a new architecture, we're not going to do that overnight, we're going to do it incrementally. But I'm going to have a plan, I'm going to show them a plan, this is what it's going to look like at the end, this is our game. Is that, no? Any other questions or comments or thoughts from the DPL people? JavaScript's not going anywhere?
Well, it's got the TypeScript something.
What's going to happen first? JavaScript's going to go away, or Donald Trump's going to win the Nobel Peace Prize? Yeah.
Sorry to just throw one more comment in on that because of what we were just talking about. That picture is not always just for your developers, but it can be for your customers too. Because how do you convince a customer that it's worth investing in this change that you're making? And as you were talking through that, it really clicked to me, I had to do that with the team. I had to explain to our customer why we wanted to invest in this change.
Yeah.
And it was like a year later that the customer was like, they made a change to their process and we were able to turn it on a dime. And I was like, oh, see?
Yeah.
See what I was talking about? This is how we're able to do it. So
I think having case studies, if you don't have the personal experience that you're working on, having people in instances that you can refer to. Because we're not talking about something that was invented by one company or, these are common things that happen not just in software engineering, but in other fields of engineering as well. And they're done for a reason. And so there's any number of examples out there of companies that do more of this. You can even point to, I'm pretty sure the team that wrote the software that put Curiosity on Mars didn't just come in one day and all the post-it notes were on the taskboard and people just started blowing them off and writing code, right? I'm pretty sure that's not, and I'm pretty sure there was a chief engineer who was paying attention to everything that was going on with that project. So I don't know any other way other than to say, I'm pointing you and giving you information, here's what this team has done. And that person might say, well, they have extraordinary people in that. Well, I don't think that's the case. I think the vast majority of the software development teams out there, set aside the Jeff Walsh laboratory, the vast majority of the development teams out there have a lot of really good, solid people. Most of us are just mere mortals that are doing this. It's not just the Robert Martins or the Mark Fowlers of the world that are having success. So other than that, I think it's always been, I tell you that because it's been valuable for us when we've been talking to people, is to say, here was our experience and some success we had on some of the projects that we designed and built. It's made it much easier to have those conversations with folks. Anyone?